Hello and welcome to the Center for Jewish History. I'm delighted that you're all here for this month's Family History Today lecture, which is titled Help, Part 5.25, I Got My DNA Results, Case Studies in Success and Questions. My name is Jenny Rappaport, and I am the head genealogist at the Ackman and Ziff Family Genealogy Institute. And if you can just bear with me as I make a few short remarks, I will introduce our speaker. So the Center for Jewish History provides a collaborative home for 5 in-house partner organizations, which together form the largest archive on the modern Jewish experience outside of Israel. In addition, the center houses the Ackman and Ziff Family Genealogy Institute, that's the part where I work, where we assist people, whether Jewish or non-Jewish, with researching their family history. Because time is of the essence, the Genealogy Institute has recently shifted our focus this year to helping Holocaust survivors and their direct descendants, in the hope that solving questions about their families can bring healing and closure. Our definition of a Holocaust survivor is extremely broad and encompasses anyone who experienced persecution under the Nazi regime from 1933 to 1945, regardless of religion, including refugees, people in hiding, and those who were incarcerated in concentration camps. If you are a Holocaust survivor or the direct descendant of a Holocaust survivor, meaning the child or grandchild of one, we encourage you to make an appointment with the Genealogy Institute by emailing GIA, so G as in giraffe, I as in ice cream, A as in apple, at cjh.org. We remain open to the general public on Mondays, with the exception of today when we are closed, from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., when our experienced genealogy staff is happy to assist researchers of all experience levels with their research. No appointments are needed on Mondays. You may have noticed the chat is disabled during this program because that is how our event staff has set it up. You can ask any questions and comments in the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. Gil, our guest speaker, will only answer your questions during the dedicated Q&A program portion at the end of this program. If you would like to view the closed captions for this program, please click on the closed caption button on the bottom of your screen, and then click Show Subtitles. Give me 1 second to get that drink. This program is being recorded. Please note that we correct the auto captions for all our program videos, so it typically takes us about 2 to 3 weeks to post them online. We've been running a little slow. We're speeding it up. Once the video is online, you'll receive an email with the link to watch it. And finally, I am utterly thrilled to introduce today's speaker, Gil Bardige. Gil Bardige was born and raised in Chicago and currently lives in the Columbus, Ohio area. A graduate of the New York Institute of Technology, Gil retired in 2019 after a long career in air conditioning and refrigeration, most recently as a national business development leader for Trane Technologies. At the instruction of his mother, Gil began his genealogy adventure in 1979 with 54 people in his tree. Today, his family tree includes over 3,000 people on 4 different branches, going back to his 5th great-grandfathers, who were born in about 1740. His family arrived in Chicago in the early 1900s. For over 17 years, Gil has expanded his knowledge base to genetic genealogy, which is why we're here today, testing at each of the 4 major DNA companies, and he currently manages 3 Y-DNA projects at Family Tree DNA as a volunteer administrator. He loves to help people manage their expectations and begin to remove confusion from their DNA results, whether it's Y-DNA, mitochondrial DNA, or autosomal DNA. He has spoken at dozens of local events and international conferences, including at the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies Conference in Orlando, Cleveland, the virtual San Diego Conference, the virtual Philadelphia Conference, London, and most recently in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Gil is the chair of the Genealogy Committee of the Columbus Jewish Historical Society. He co-hosts live genetic genealogy Q&A sessions at JGS Illinois and JGS Toronto. Gil developed and hosts the monthly Kvel and Kvetch genealogy Q&A in Columbus. Gil has managed the mentoring program for IAJGS and co-hosts the Apple Users and Jewish Genealogy Facebook page, and monthly virtual Birds of a Feather meeting. Gil is a firm believer that you can use DNA results as a tool in your genealogical research, as it generates clues that can help people confirm or deny relationships. His speaking style, as you will soon find out, is high energy. You won't be bored, and he loves to take questions. And I will happily turn the program over to you now.
Great. Thanks, Jenny. Hello, everyone.
You're very welcome.
Great. All things are good here. You are going to see my microphone here because it's more important, I think, that you hear me clearly. All right. Today is a rather unique talk. They asked me to talk about some of the things based on case studies. And the important part about case studies, as a colleague of mine once said to me, is you really need, Gil, to tell people how you do what you do. We all think that we're genealogists, right? Or genetic genealogists, but what we're really doing are different processes. We're doing different methodologies. And we've all learned how to do certain things. But I've learned in my life that there are different perspectives about how to do things. And if you do it only by the book, well, it's going to take you a real long time. And I'm not minimizing the book and proof standards, but what I want to do is help you go a bit faster. When we tell you to work on the genealogy of someone that is a DNA match to you, you your first inclination is to cringe. I've been working for years on my genealogy and you want me to make a tree for somebody else? Well, why don't I show you a little bit? Let me do a little bit of housekeeping here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and then I am going to go into full screen mode, and then I'm going to mark up my notes here, and we should be ready to go. Okay, so I call this help. Part 5.25. The nomenclature's mine, so I know what talks I gave. And I got my DNA results, and these are in the form of case studies that I have had success, and yet I've been a genealogist over 45 years. Wow, can you believe it? Over 45 years, and I have questions too. I have brick walls. I have roadblocks, just like you. But one of the things I want to do today is allow you to think about things in your genealogy from a different perspective. It's hard to believe, but in less than a month, we are starting the second quarter of the 21st century. And therefore, one of the questions that people have given to me beyond how I do things, they've given me some advice. And they've said, attendees want to know how you do things, but also, what is the process that you follow? So this talk is for beginners and intermediates and even advanced researchers. It's the people, if maybe this is you, you've looked at your DNA results over and over again, or you just can't find people. So I want you to consider these different perspectives, different points of view. Why don't we get started? Now, I like to remind people that what we're doing here is, well, we're looking, if you're like me, you have 270,000 matches. 270,000. I've tested or uploaded my data to all 4 testing companies. Hopefully you have too. Why? Because you don't know where your matches tested. And if you're going to change, now I will mention a lot of companies. I don't get compensated by any of them. Maybe I should, but I don't. But now's a good time if you need to take a DNA test. But I have 270,000 matches. I'm sorry, that's 270,000 matches. And people have said to me, I'm really confused. Well, no doubt. You've got more than 250,000 matches. And the testing company said DNA will break down your brick walls. And many of you have said to me, it's made more brick walls or different brick walls. And maybe you don't like brick walls. Maybe you like the terminology roadblock. Now, so today, I'm going to take you on a little bit of a different path. I'm going to take you away from your traditional research. Okay. I am a child of the 50s. I grew up in the 60s, and I'm going to take you on a road trip. Now, I want you to picture this. The first place we're going to visit, it's important that you visit here. I call it Goldberg. Now, you're either Jewish or you're interested in Jewish genealogy. So basically, you should know what this is. What is Goldberg? I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, yeah, that's what I said, the following question. Why am I doing this? What's my goal? When you're working with DNA or genetic genealogy, and we use the terms interchangeably, what we're looking for are tree-friendly matches. I have a 270,000 matches. You might have more than me or you might have less than me. It doesn't matter. You are, I hate to tell you this, related to all of them, whether you want to be or not. But the only ones we want to focus on are the tree friendly matches. The people that you can put in your tree, or you could prioritize to put them in your tree, or maybe you get lucky, you put them, they put you in their tree. Maybe they have the missing pieces, the missing links for you. That's what I'm doing. Maybe that's what you're doing as well. Next, we go to visit a place that I call Rules County 1.25. Why do I talk about this? Because it's important for anyone who is a genetic genealogist who is frustrated. You can empathize. Can you hear it in my voice? The frustration. Because the testing companies told you this was going to be easy. And it's not. We have endogamy. That's not your second great grandparents were first cousins. That's multiple relationships and pedigree collapse. Not going to get into that. We're talking about endogamy, marrying within the clan, within the tribe, within the gubernia, within the region, over dozens upon dozens of generations, which is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And they manifest itself, the endogamy, in a lot of small segments. Therefore, what the DNA companies show us may or may not be helpful to us to find close relatives. So rule number one, I used to have like a dozen rules. I've narrowed it down. There's only one. I want you to expect exceptions to everything I'm going to tell you today, everything that any other expert or professional has told you before, everything you read on Facebook and Instagram and other webinars you go to. There are exceptions because we have endogamy. And genetic genealogy, or DNA, we use the terms interchangeably, is a science. It's a new science. It's like 25-ish years old. That's it. But I'll bet you'll agree with me. It acts more like an art than a science. The testing companies use different terminologies, different formats, different structures. You look at your ethnicity estimates and you get 4 different testing companies and you have 4 different ethnicity estimates. So we're going to take a different path. I want to introduce you to this concept. I call it Mishpocha Triangulation. Now, I permanently borrowed this concept from my friend and colleague Arthur Sisman, who has a concept, well, it's pretty much the same concept. It's called the three-legged stool. We just like naming things differently. We're like the DNA testing companies. But the key part here is the word triangulation, that there are 3 things that your priority matches need to qualify for you to even think about working with them. Number 1 is they have to be a DNA match. Doesn't matter what the match is. but they need to be a DNA match. And I have another talk where I talk about the Ask 'em method, which will help you determine which are the good methods, but I don't quite have enough time to go over that today. Next, they're going to need to have a surname, not necessarily yours, but one maybe that you recognize. And spelling doesn't matter, but it is important, but it doesn't matter. And by the way, if you noticed how I spelled Mishpocha, well, actually, the chatbot did. Mishpocha is one of those words that's spelled almost as many different ways as your surnames. And the third one is they come from the same town, the same shtetl, the same county, the same area. Oh, how about within 25, 30, 35 miles-ish of where your family is from? Now, Jenny said, I was born and raised in Chicago. Not really. I was born in a town, or I lived in a town called Park Forest, but I wasn't born there because there was no hospital there. But I tell people I'm from Chicago. Well, you're all genealogists. Our ancestors did the same thing. I'm from Kiev. Well, maybe from the city, just outside the city, the Gubernia. You have to learn, you have to figure that out. Those three things, shtetl, DNA match, surname, you put those together, and those are the matches that you work on. How do you do this? Well, we go and we visit a place that I call Process City. Now, I'm going to skip part of it because that's not the focus of this talk in terms of the Ask 'em method of which relatives. But we're going to talk about case studies. How did I figure out these people belong in my tree? Prove that they should be in my tree? Or did research to find them so I could go do genealogy and see if they belong in my tree? So the first place we're going to visit is a case study I call the known third cousin. Now, there's a preface here. Before we go visit this known third cousin, I need to make sure you understand some of the basics of genetic genealogy in dealing with endogamy. So in order to do that, we're going to visit a place I call the shtetl of endogamy, also known as Chelm. Okay? It's a bit ironic. My paternal grandfather grew up about 60 miles east of Chelm. The amount of DNA shared in cm, centimorgans, is a key measurement of the size of a segment of DNA on a chromosome that we have to pay attention to. Now, my colleague and friend Lara Diamond, okay, from Lara's genealogy blog, conducted a survey between 2019 and 2022. Actually, it's still open, where people self-reported by filling out a questionnaire. Tell me about your relationships and tell me how much DNA you share with people based on a given relationship. That's the green part up here. Now, I'm Jewish. I'm going to start on the right side. On the right side, in the right-hand column, is the average amount of DNA shared according to the Shared Centimorgan Project, version 4.0, from Blaine Bettinger. That's at DNApainter.com. I'm showing you Lara's survey results versus Blaine's because Blaine's is the general population. I'm in there. Many of you probably have your data in there. But Lara's is strictly Jewish, and I want to show you by the numbers what endogamy looks like. So for a given relationship, let's try second cousins. The average amount of DNA shared by a second cousin is 229 centimorgans. Oh, wait, Gil. Wait. I've been told I cannot use the Shared Centimorgan Project because I have endogamy. In fact, it tells me not to use it because it doesn't compensate for endogamy. And my reaction to that is true. But for second cousins once removed and closer, you share so much DNA with people that you can use that project. You can use that data. But in this case, I want to show you the difference. This is the general population, and this is the average amount of the Jewish people who provided data to Lara Diamond. What do you see? Look at the difference in the quantity. That difference in the average amount is the smaller segments from endogamy that have hung around in your system for generation upon generation upon generation. Endogamy means that we are going to be at the higher end of the scale. A second cousin typically, remember rule one, but not always, typically will have more DNA for a second cousin than the general population. Why is this important? Because the testing companies give you their relationships based on how much DNA you share. And if you share more than the general population, it's going to look like your relationships are closer than they actually are. So, second cousins once removed and closer, typically those relationships are spot on. But as you go further back in time, third to fifth cousins more than likely will be fourth to sixth. Fourth to sixth cousins will be, oh, I don't know, fifth to seventh, eighth, or ninth. And the challenge is we're genealogists. This is all about my family tree. Does your tree go back that far? Mine doesn't. Sixth cousin is about as I got one sixth cousin who took a DNA test. Okay. And that's it. Which means all those distant cousins, don't waste your time. Rule number one. Wait a minute. What about rule number one? Remind me later. I'll show you the exception. Now, one other I want to show you here is, for example, third cousins, because this case study is about third cousins. This is the average amount of DNA shared by a third cousin. Jewish. Average amount by the general population. That's a big deal. But look at this range. They could have as much as 315 or as little as 0. Yeah. Welcome to the science that acts more like an art. According to ISOG, the International Society of Genetic Genealogists, up to 10% of third cousins can share 0. It's really hard to find DNA matches that are 0. But this also means that they might share 20 or 30 or 40. But you're looking for 122 as the average. This is something to ponder. Let's look at this. I call this 23andMe and the third cousin. Now, I have a known third cousin. He is in my family tree. And I just got finished telling you, a well-documented family tree, that's the key to what we're doing. Well, I know him personally. He comes to family events. A couple of years ago in Chicago, I had dinner with him and the family. It was great to see him. And I said, Sheldon, I need you to take a DNA test. Nah, not interested. I said, but Sheldon, no. I said, do you mind if I ask your kids? Yeah, sure. So I ask his kids, and they go, no, my dad says, no, I'm not going to take the DNA test. Okay. So one day, I used to bug him about every 6 months. And I said, Sheldon, for crying out loud. He goes, all right, I'll take the DNA test. Stop nudging me. Great. So he takes the DNA test. He picks 23andMe. That's fine. No problem. He tested 23andMe, calls me. Yep, Gil, guess what? What? I got my DNA results. Great. What does it say? And he says, what does it say about what? I said, well, how much DNA do we share? He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, they have me listed and how much DNA and centimorgans that we share. He said, well, it says I'm 100% Jewish. I said, no, 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 no. That's an ethnicity estimate. He goes, you know, I'm Jewish. I go, yeah, I know. He goes, so I had to pay for a DNA test to learn I'm Jewish? No, I said, no, no. I want to know how much DNA do we share? He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So I go and log in, okay, and I can't find him. So I said, Sheldon, did you sign up with one of these cockamamie names thinking it's going to really protect your privacy? He goes, nope. Okay. Now, how many of you, I can't really see you or anything, and this is not a poll, but I just wanted to ask yourself, how many of you have been to a family wedding or a bar mitzvah when we were children? And we went there and you looked at people and they looked at you and everybody was very nice to each other. And you said maybe to your grandmother, oh, who is that guy? And your grandmother said, oh, he's a cousin. Now, is he really a cousin or is he just a really good friend of the family and they call him a cousin because maybe they come from the same shtetl? So I'm sitting there and I don't panic easily, but I'm sitting there going, oy, maybe he's one of those cousins who's really not a cousin. Now, this is where you have to look at things from a different point of view. According to what I just told you before, third cousins can share as little as 0 DNA. Yeesh. And now think about this. 23andMe, those of you who've tested at 23andMe, except the most recent ones, and I tested a long time ago there, the most number of matches you can have shown is 1,500. So is he really not a cousin? Is he one of these third cousin aberrations? Or maybe it's 23andMe. So I said to him, would you upload your data? Now, you can't do this now, but back then we uploaded the data to MyHeritage because that's where I had all the rest of the family and they had some good tools and we did that. And I come up with the following. Here's me. And here is my paternal first cousin, Gary, who is also Sheldon's third cousin. And we share roughly the same amount of DNA with Sheldon. Remember, third cousin's supposed to be 122. That's the average. And we share about 53. Huh. Okay. Well, I got the DNA match. I got the name. And I've got the shtetl. And he's in my tree. So he is Mishpocha Triangulation. But I want to tell you this. Sheldon shares 0 DNA with my brother Steve. He shares 0 DNA with my brother Art. And he shares 0 DNA with the other 5 paternal cousins who've tested. So one of the things you have to do as a lesson is test as many members of your family that you can. Your siblings, and your first cousins. If you don't have them, your second cousins. If you are lucky enough that your parents or grandparents are around, you test them and their siblings. And this is why. Next. The testing companies then give you all this really good information, but they also give you this possible relationship stuff where they predict what it is. And MyHeritage said that there's only a 4.1% chance probability that Sheldon is my third cousin. He's in my tree. But they're saying less than a 5% chance he's my third cousin. The lesson here is don't always believe what they tell you. Do your own research. How do you do that? Sheldon becomes a priority match. He does not have a family tree. So what do? I have to create a tree for him. I can hear the groaning and the oy vey. I'm not asking you to spend 40 years creating a tree for Sheldon. I want you to create a tree, a basic tree with enough documentation that proves or disproves the relationship. And I want you to create what is called a private tree. Why private? If you're at Ancestry or MyHeritage, you want a private tree that is searchable. And you want it private but searchable so their algorithms can find you and people can find you so you're not doing all the work, but also private that people can't steal your work. And above all, what if you're wrong? What if the documentation proves he's not? That's why I use Genie, but I don't use it for this exercise. I've used Family Search, but I don't use it for this exercise because I don't need it in the public. There's enough incorrect trees in the world. I don't need to contribute that. And here's how we start. I made this generic because I didn't want to show you based on Ancestry or MyHeritage or this or that in case you don't work on that. So you can do this on any program you wish. You could do it on paper with pencil if you wish. And like anything in genealogy, we start with ourselves. So here's me, born in 54 in Chicago. Here's Gary. I don't know why, but I forgot to write down. He was born and raised in Chicago. His mother and my father were siblings. And Sheldon was born in 42 in Chicago. Oh, okay. I got the guy. I got the DNA. Well, I've got some DNA. And I have the town. Okay, I'm doing good. Wait, what do you see here? Genealogist, what should you question? He was born in 42. Gary and I were born much later. Is it
Gil,
possible that, yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt, and it may just be my screen that's doing this. I see a black screen and then I see the beginning of your diagram at the
yep,
bottom.
that's what it's supposed to be. That's it. I'm going to build on it. You'll get there.
Okay, awesome. Just
That's
wanted to make
okay.
sure I was seeing correctly and I hadn't
Nope,
got
you're
it wrong.
seeing correct. Yep,
I'll let you keep going. Thank you.
not a problem. Okay. So what you see here, the question is Sheldon really a third cousin or is he maybe a third cousin once removed? Because look at the age differential. Aha, it's not in the tree. But my brother Art was born in 1942, and my brother Steve was born in 1943, and I was the accident in the family. So, having said that, I'm not worried about whether or not he's once removed or not. We are looking at a third cousin. Next, here you go, Jenny. Next, we then go to the next things we know. All right, so here's Gary's mom. Here's my dad. Born in 1909 in Lutsk, Volhynia, Ukraine, in the Russian Empire, lived in Chicago. Sheldon's father, Hy Bierman, I remember his dad, okay? Born 1908 in Lutsk, in the Russian Empire, lived in Chicago. Remember Mishpocha Triangulation. Next, we go back further. Solomon Bierman is his grandfather. And my grandmother, who Gary and I are both named after, my dad's mom, is Gittel Chait or Chait, born 1884, Lutsk in the Russian Empire, lived in Chicago. Are you getting the pattern here? Next, I look at the great-grandparents, and his is Chaim Bierman, and oh, look at this. My great-grandmother was Sarah Dina Bierman, born at the right time, at the right place. And therefore, our most recent common ancestor, that's who you're always looking for as you go back in time. The most recent common ancestor, MRCA, is our second great-grandfather, Meir Zev Bierman. He and I are documented third cousins. The fact that the DNA shares less than expected is an aberration. It ends up being the DNA is a clue, and yet it does confirm location, surname, DNA. Let's go to the next one. Now, analysis is needed on this one. And I call this one, Do You Know All of Your Second Cousins? Well, I've been a genealogist for a long time. I don't know them all personally, but I know them. Or if I knew them, I was 3 years old and I don't remember. Now, this is a few years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. I got an email from Ancestry. By the way, I hope you have your email notifications turned on at the testing company. So if you get a close match, you get an email. And I get this email and it says, You have a close match, a second cousin match. I'm going, This is great. And you share 390 centimorgans. Whoa. The average amount is 229, and we share 390. This is a real match. And I look at her name, which I'm not going to show you here, but I look at her name and I go, Oi, who's she? I don't recognize her name. Remember that little quiver I had dealing with Sheldon? Oh, I got it again. Is my tree wrong? Did I miss something? So what's the first thing that I do? Well, I look to see if she has a tree. Of course she doesn't have a tree. Why would she make it easy for me? She doesn't have a tree. Okay. So what's the next thing that I do? The next thing I do is I click on her name and I look to see information. I now know how much DNA is shared across the number of segments. Ask me a little bit later about ASCIM. I then go and look. So she doesn't have a tree. I checked her ethnicity. Now, I usually don't do that, but it's a click. I click, check quickly. Yeah, surprise, she's 100% Jewish. Okay. And then I look at the shared matches. Why do I look at shared matches? Because I need to see which side of the family and maybe which branch of the family she's on as a clue, because I don't recognize her surname. And she is a match for my paternal first cousin, Justin, and my paternal first cousin, Terry, which tells me she's more than likely paternal. By the way, do you see how much DNA I share with Justin and how much I share with Terry? Okay. They're siblings and they don't share anywhere near the same amount of DNA with me as they should. Okay. It's random how much DNA, how much autosomal DNA, the DNA you get 50% from mom and 50% from dad, how much siblings get. And it's not the same amounts. So this is the standard shared matches. I want to encourage you when you get the chance, doesn't need to be today. I want you to consider how much DNA you're looking at by looking at Shared Matches Pro, what they call an Ancestry Enhanced Shared Matching. If you're not using it, I want you to consider using it. Okay? Excuse me. It's $10 a month. Don't buy a year's worth. Don't waste your time. Buy 1 month. Why? Well, here's how much DNA Justin shares with me and how much DNA Terry shares with me. And Risa shares 390 centimorgans with me. But she shares 301 with Justin and 288 with Terry. This can be an interesting clue. If you don't share enough DNA, maybe one of your cousins or siblings does. Next step. I go to DNA Painter because I need to know, am I looking really at a second cousin? Remember, second cousins share on average 229. But she and I share 390. So I need to find what other possible relationships there are because the DNA testing companies, they sometimes get it wrong. But what other testing company, I mean, what other relationships can there be? And I'm looking at 390. Well, second cousins are 41 to 592. First cousins twice removed are 33 to 471. And then if you look at the rest of them, those are the only two possible relationships based on the amount of DNA shared. So it narrows it down. What's the next step? I build a private tree. The first thing I do, now this is a match at Ancestry, so I use my account at Ancestry. And no, I don't ever pay full price at Ancestry. You get it when it's on sale. And by the way, don't tell them, but when it's time to renew, you cancel 3 days before, and then you call them up after the due date's over, and you say, I can't afford the new price. I'm a senior citizen, and they'll give you a deal. But don't tell them I said that. Now, what's the first thing I do? I go to her Ancestry profile. Why? Because sometimes people like me, and I was in my 60s at the time, and people like her say what their age range is. Now, why is this important? Because I now know she cannot be a first cousin twice removed. She can't be my first cousin's grandchildren. Cannot be. So she has to be a second cousin. We're narrowing the focus. Next step, I go to Google. And somebody said to me, no, 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 you have to go to Jewish Gen or you have to do, no, no, I go to Google. Why am I going to Google? Because I don't recognize her. I don't know who she is. So I go to Google and I look it up and I get a sigh of relief. That's her married name. Ah, breathe. I can breathe again. And then I go to Been Verified. Now, this is a paid service. You can also use, it's called familytreenow.com, which is sort of a free service. Do not put your family tree there. Do not establish an account. Just use it as a guest. Familytreenow.com. And I looked her up. Why? I need to see how many people have her name. How many people am I trying to find? How many people am I dealing with? Okay. And I was very lucky. She's like me. She's the only person in the United States with that name. Boy, that made it easier. Okay. I then continue my research and I'm on Ancestry and I find an obituary. I find the obituary of her father, Harry Chait or Harry Chait, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Born December 1922, lived in New York City. Awesome. Here's my dad. Wait, wait. Harry Chait. I know that name. I go into my tree, and what do I find? Well, remember from the previous case, here's my grandmother. She's a Chait. And her father was Herschel Hirsch Chait. Born 1852. Oh, there's that Lutsk again. Lutsk in the Russian Empire. Died September 1922 on the ship to Ellis Island. I don't think they left the dock yet, but he died on board the ship. Okay, genealogists, family historians, what do you see? What do you see? Let me clear this. What do you see? Remember Mishpocha Triangulation, DNA, name, location. But let's take it one step further. You are a genealogist. You're Jewish. You understand the naming concept. But my Chaits were Chicago. Harry was New York City. I then go and I look at the marriage license of Harry Chait. And I find his parents. His father's a guy named Solomon. Where is Solomon born? Same place as my grandmother. 3 years after my grandmother, but he lived in New York. I didn't know my grandmother, but I knew the other members of my family, and there was never ever a discussion about New York relatives. Never. So I looked at the 1930 census, and what did I find? I found that Harry, who lived in New York, was born in Illinois. Wow. Clue. Are we putting the pieces together? Next step. I then find Solomon's death certificate. And on Solomon's death certificate, it lists these two people as his parents. Interesting, because those are the same two people who are my paternal great grandparents. Solomon and Gittel are siblings. My dad and Harry were first cousins. Risa and I are second cousins. That's the process. And when I say a tree and a private tree, I'm looking at 7 total sources here. It's enough definitive documentation to prove the relationship, especially when you get to, holy cow, we share great grandparents. Okay. I want everybody to take a deep breath, take a stretch for a minute. Let this sink in. Okay. Just consider it. Let it sink in. Take a drink of water. Okay. Deep breath. And by the way, if you see a cat's tail go past, that's either Rizzo or Jade. I can't control the fact that they sometimes like to hog the camera a bit. Let's continue to the next place. I call this the sweet spot. Third cousins to fourth cousins once removed. Why are they considered the sweet spot? Because it's very likely that you don't know them personally. You may not have all of them in your tree. More than likely, you don't. But if you can find them, they may be the lead to documentation, or they may have documentation for you to expand your tree. Remember, we're looking for tree-friendly matches. Now, we're still in this case at Ancestry. The gentleman at the bottom here is my paternal great-grandfather, Moshe Aaron Bardige, which I found out last year he was married twice. It's amazing how much stuff you can find out. His father was Mordko, also known as Mordecai, and his father, my third great-grandfather, was David. But I talk about third cousins to fourth cousins once removed because I want to make sure that you understand who are these people you're trying to find, that you can beg them to take a DNA test or steal information or get something from them. So my great-grandfather had 3 sisters, Ruchela, Razela, and Chana. And I have no idea who they're married to. I don't know their married names. Therefore, I know nothing about their children. I don't know when they died. I only have documentation from the revision list that they exist. But he had one older brother, and his name was Isaac. And Isaac was nice enough to have a zillion children. Everyone from Benjamin to Esther. And you will notice that the name is Bardige. That was my family's original name. But you will also notice, let me see if I can get a closer view here. Yep, there we go. We get a closer view, and you end up in your research of finding all these surnames you never heard of before. These are the people that you're looking for. You're looking for the descendants of your great grandfather's siblings or your second great grandfather's siblings. That's who you're looking for. And you may or may not recognize the names. So, have you ever had a situation where you've gotten an email from someone, or maybe you've sent the email and it says, Dear Gil, I got this list and it says we're a DNA match. I am sending you, the list of 10 surnames in my family and all the towns. Do you recognize any of them? And the answer usually is no. Why not? Because I never heard of these people before I put them in my tree. Frankel, right? Eltzer, Melamid, Wagman? Really? I never would have considered those. Let's continue the process. We go down a generation because that's what we do. So we start with Benjamin. He was the one on the left. And we go down. And I got a Bardiga. Got another name. Wait, I got a Bordiga. Wait, I got a Bardiger. Same people, same descendants, same tree, right? The name spellings were changed. Oh, by the way, all these people are in the UK, and all these names changed. Go down one more generation, and they change again the spelling. But Mishpocha Triangulation says surname, yeah, spelling's not important. Well, really? Are you sure that spelling's not important? Let's take a look at this. We're going to visit a place that I call Shared Match City. We have endogamy. We have paternal and maternal sides of the family. But there are methods you can use that are absolute game changers by looking at shared matches from the testing companies. But you must interpret the data wisely. Now, let me preface this by saying this. Remember, I mentioned Ancestry ProTools. It's $10 a month. Just buy it for the 1 month. I tried what I'm going to show you on one surname, and I ended up adding 7 tree-friendly matches. Remember, that's the goal. People who took a DNA test. I added 7 people to my tree. And that led me to 49 people who did not test, but I could document, and I added them to my tree. And later I will talk to you about through lines where I added 7 people on my Gartzman line, 5 people on my Bardiga line, and 6 people on my Weinberg-Korogotsky line. This stuff works. But you have to follow the process. Let's continue. Now, this is a bit of an older screen. It doesn't look this way anymore, but it helps me. It's older because my brothers have subsequently tested at Ancestry, and if I showed you that screen right away, it would screw up what I'm going to tell you. So let's just work from this one. When you go down your list at Ancestry, I have 196,000 matches at Ancestry. You could have more than that or less than that, but it is a number that you will never get through in your lifetime. It's too many. They don't give us the tools to do it yet, but we don't. So we're going to start on the left or the right. Yep, we're going to start on the right. Ancestry gives you the ability to search based on the birth location of your match's family tree. Oh, this is an argument why you have to have a tree at Ancestry, the same at MyHeritage. They have algorithms that can search for people, your DNA matches, if they have a tree. Okay. Private but searchable. Private but searchable. Next. I don't use this often. Matter of fact, I'm not ever sure I ever used birth by birth location. And the surname, and there's a little box here. Can you see it? Yep, you can see it. The surname includes like a Soundex or a phonic system so you can get similar surnames. So you plug in the surname. That's great. But this is based on the tree. I'm looking for a DNA match. So I plug in Bardige, and what do I get? Look at this. I get this thing that says no matches found. Really? Okay. Fast forward ahead. My brothers tested. I did it again. This is the new screen. I plugged in Bardige, and what do I get? I get my brothers. Great. Okay. Now, Bardige is kind of a made up name. It's a made up spelling. There's 13 of us in the world. This is all you're going to see. I'm waiting for somebody to surprise me, but it hasn't happened yet. So, Gil, why are you showing us this? Watch. We now have a case study that's called Shared Matches Search by Surname. Process ahead. Here's that same screen. I would normally plug in Bardige here, but what if I plug in one of the spelling variations? Why? Because the match search at Ancestry has no Soundex and no phonetics. It's exact only. Well, that stinks. Yeah, no kidding. But I plugged in Bardige, spelled differently. Why? Because I had that name in my tree. And what did I get? Boom, I get 4 of them. 4 of them. Now, I'm a pretty small family. 4 is a good number for me. And David shares 51 centimorgans. Natalie shares 40. Andre, who's Andre? Shares 28. And a guy named Miro shares 18 centimorgans. Remember before, I was looking at someone at 229, at 390. Are you ever going to get to 18? No. This is an alternate way of searching for relatives based on surname, but they force you to kind of have to do it one at a time. What is the process that I follow? Well, I start with David and I click on his name and I get this. It tells me how much DNA we share, 51 centimorgans across 3 segments. Now, I will give you a hint. The smaller the quantity of segments of a DNA match, the better that matches. Okay. I look to see if he has a tree. And I'm not going to show it to you, but he does. He has a tree with 9 people on it. Did everybody get that? How many people you search for people's trees and they got 3 people. They got 9 people. And not only that, most of the people are private. And now I don't always do origins, but I did. And I clicked on origins and guess what? He's not even 100% Jewish. He's 50% Jewish. And most people go, oh, and I go, no, that's good. I have only half the number of matches I got to worry about. Now, I use ProTools. And this is why you should. Again, I'm not compensated by them. I'm pausing because I thought I took these 2 slides out. This is, oh, no, I didn't. I went back to one. I went too fast. Okay, here's David. Now, here is my shared match list on ProTools with David. This is my known paternal third cousin, Sue. She and I share 138 centimorgans. She's in my tree. But the beauty of the shared matches on this tool shows me David shares 180 centimorgans with Sue. He shares more DNA with her than she does with me. He's closer related to her than I am. Holy cow. I go down the list and I look at another match and I share a lot, but he doesn't share very much. He only shares about 20. Oh, wait, and I got this other guy. Who's this guy? Bardige? Does that sound like Bardige? Oh, wait, there's no Soundex. looking at DNA matches. And he and I only share 46 centimorgans. You know how many weeks it would take me to go down the list to get to 46? And David shares more DNA with him than I do. David's closer related to this guy than I am, which means this name that maybe I didn't know is now a clue. It's another name I need to research. I then go to the next one and I share 42. David shares less. Why is this important? Everyone in this right-hand column, the amount of DNA that they share with the person needs to be greater than what you share. If it's less, you can ignore it. I go to the next one and I got another guy named David B. and I share only 42 centimorgans. And it says both sides, which is normally not a good thing. And it doesn't help. But David shares 182 with this guy. He's closely related to this guy. And then remember I said Natalie? Who's Natalie? I share 40 with her. She's his kid. She's his daughter. How many hours would I, if I had to do genealogy to find out that Natalie was David's daughter? The DNA tells me immediately. Okay? Let me skip the next one. I then plug in Natalie. Why? Well, because I want to see her shared matches. And is there anything else it can tell me? Now, again, the right-hand column should be greater, and it's not, so I ignore this one. It's not, so I ignore this one. It's not, so I ignore this one. Whoa, here's that guy, Andre. Ooh, same last name. I share a whopping 28 centimorgans with him. Look how much Natalie shares. It turns out that Andre is her uncle. He's David's brother. I haven't done any genealogy at this point. This is just from the DNA. Is this cool or what? Let's keep going. I then, remember my third cousin Sue? I do the same thing. Third cousin Sue, she shares more DNA with Burdage than I do. Okay, so Burdage is related to Sue, and Burdage is related to David. Holy cow, I got something here. And you keep going down the list. Sue's even closely related to this guy, David B., that I share 42 with. I then compare David B. to other relatives. How close is he? He's related to Sue and Andre. There's Andre again. Oh, and he's related to the Burdage guy. So I got to pay attention to him. These people become priority matches, and I've done no calculations. I have done no genealogy, but I have found priority matches to look at. I then begin the DNA process. These people all live in the UK. I go through the family tree and I start with one of the Bardige women. Why? Because I don't recognize the other people's surnames. And I end up finding out she's married to this guy, Melamid. They had a kid, Leah, also known as Lily, who married a guy named Abraham Bliss. Oh, and look, here's the DNA guy. There's that David B. I can now add all of these people into my family tree. I then go and search for the documentation to support everything. Let's go to the next one. Case study I call rule number one. Everybody remember rule number one, right? Expect exceptions. Are you kidding me? Let's continue. Those were the ones, the people that don't have a tree. How about a case study on someone? What if they do have a tree? I've been bugging you about adding your tree if you don't already have it. And you could take a copy of your tree from a GEDCOM that's someplace else and upload it to Ancestry. Again, private, but, excuse me, searchable. And you use Ancestry through lines. Well, how do you do that? Well, you click on it and you get something that looks like this. Now, as an example, I'm going to show you one. My maternal great-grandmother, Russell Rose Weinberg. Never met her, passed before I was born. And when you do this, it shows you all the people who have DNA tests who have also got a family tree, and it builds the tree for you. We start on the right-hand side. Okay? Here's me. Here's my mom. Here's her older brother. Okay? And my Uncle Herman's two great-granddaughters have tested DNA. So I'm working on the maternal side of the family. My maternal grandfather, Laser Pinchas Korogotsky, also known as Corey. He had an older brother, Mesha. And Mesha had a son, Lester, a grandson, Martin, and my second cousin once removed, Bess. Okay? I'm staying on the maternal side. I skip all the way over to the left side because this is the evaluation part. I skip to the far left, and that is my grand uncle Isaac, my grandfather's oldest brother. And if you trace the family tree down, there's some guy named EK. Now, I know it's a little small, but EK shares a whopping 17 centimorgans with me. You're not going to ever find him without doing it this way. Why? Because if I search for EK, I'm not going to search for EK. I'm looking for names. Next. They give you some to evaluate. I will tell you, I have rejected probably 36 trees because they're just wrong. The DNA is good, but the people's family trees stink. They're just wrong. You know, the ones who copy everything from one tree to another. But this one, I start the process, and I work through Samantha, and I share 9 centimorgans with her. Is that crazy? 9. I go up her family tree, and I have no idea who her father is, but I'm guessing that he is a Jackson. Okay? And then I look at her grandmother. Wait, I know this woman. She's one of my mom's favorite cousins. I look at my tree, and I have a guy named Barney Pat. My mom used to call him Barney. Well, apparently his name is Bernard. And then I look up here, and there is a woman here named Rebecca Pat. And I'm looking at her picture. I don't know about you, but I don't have enough pictures in my family tree, and I need to add some. But I look at this, and I look at the name. I don't recognize the name, but I look at the picture. I know that woman. That's my Aunt Brachahenya, my grandfather's older sister. She was at my bar mitzvah. That is Samantha's second great grandmother. And I said, this is awesome. And then I said, oy. I personally knew someone's second great grandparent. Oy, I'm getting really old, right? I mean, think about this. Oh, you know, you hear great grandparents, second great grandparents, you know, and my family, they all died in the old country. Oh my God, I knew this woman personally. That's what this can do for you. And by the way, it took me 4 minutes to learn how to use through lines. 4 minutes. It will allow you to look at these smaller DNA amounts you're never going to get through. Surnames are important. This is the last one very quickly. Let's go paternal side. Remember my paternal great-grandfather, Moshe Aaron Bardige. I click on him and I get the following. We start on the right side. Me, my dad, my grandfather, and then Moshe. We go over because we found Mordecai, my second great-grandfather, and you remember Isaac from the previous case study? There's Isaac. They're asking me to evaluate this relationships. Go down the family tree. We go Bardiga, Bardiga. Oh, Burdage. Wait, look at this. And here he is. Here's the tester. That's his tree. I go down and I got Solomon. He's one of Isaac's kids. Remember Sarah? Well, one of her daughters married a Steinberg who had a daughter who married somebody and ended up with a surname I never heard of. And I hear 16 centimorgans. This is the process that you follow. You build trees for unknown people. You go through the process for known people, build a tree for them. Try searching by surname, different spellings, whether it be Ancestry or MyHeritage. And this is what you can find. I'm going to skip ahead. And then people want to know, what do you really do here? Well, remember, for ProTools, you start 1 month at a time. It works really well for second cousins twice removed and further back up to about the fourth cousins once removed. They will show you real matches. You use enhanced shared matching. The amount in the shared match column needs to be larger than how much they share with you. You use relationship tools like through lines. And when you get finished with that one, you rinse and repeat with each of the different spellings of surnames, maybe your different surnames. Again, remember rule number 1. And don't be surprised. Rule number 1, are you kidding me? I'm going to find people in my tree that I don't even share longest segment of 20 centimorgans with, or a total amount of DNA with. There are exceptions to everything. Use this to your advantage. Thank you. Time for questions.
Hi, thank you so much, Gil. We have a ton of questions actually for you. Do you
Good.
want me to read them or I can? We have a
Sure.
lot of them.
I'm going to take a drink while you're reading. Go ahead. Start at the top.
Okay, so the first one is from Maxine. It says, how much does Ancestry's designation of European Jewish tell us about their earlier origins related to the Mediterranean versus Eastern Europe, if anything? And then she adds, I'm supposedly 100% European Jewish, although often asked if I'm Italian, Greek, Syrian, Spanish, and also been yelled at in Arabic by soldiers in the West Bank.
You too? Yeah. Well, my hair was darker. Me too. My skin was more olive. Um, the ethnicity, origins, and estimates do not go far enough back to trace that we come from the land of Israel. Okay? They're only good to about 400-ish years ago, plus or minus. If you look at the ancient stuff, they're going to take you back before Judaism. So that doesn't help you either. Many, but not all, Ashkenazi Jews who were Jewish at the time of the last diaspora are Mediterranean based. They will look similar to Greeks, or they can. I shouldn't say they will. They can look similar to Greeks and Italians, but that's not how people are determined to be Jewish. You're determined to be Jewish because your mother was Jewish, or you converted to Judaism. Those are the only two ways. Okay? The DNA, if you want to trace it back further, you need to go to family tree DNA. If you were a female, you take a mitochondrial mtDNA full sequence test. And if you're a male, you take a Y-DNA test, preferably the Y-DNA 7, Big Y 700. Okay? They're not cheap. They're the lowest price they've ever been right now. You can ignore the matches that they have. You're looking for what the origins of what's called the haplogroups are. Okay? My mother and maternal grandmother's haplogroup is Chinese, which is why I look a little different than everybody. I hope I answered your
That's
question. Next.
fascinating. Oh, I love, and sometimes I would like to add from personal experience, you find haplogroups that you don't expect. I have a very rare one on my direct maternal line, which is Ashkenazi, but there's only about 10 people who are Ashkenazi, and everybody else is
Yeah.
Polish and Slovakian. So at some
Ah,
point, somebody married in and converted to Judaism. Um,
correct.
it could have been
Yeah,
anywhere between
and we don't know when, and you may
500
not
and
ever
2,000
find out.
years ago. We don't know on my family, but we know that
You
that origin is European and not, Middle Eastern, at least in my case.
well, one of the things we have a discussion in our haplogroup meetings is the fact that we don't really know when these groups became Jewish, right? They could have been Jewish right from the beginning. They could have, converted, but also the Y DNA and the mitochondrial DNA, it's one person.
Exactly.
It's not a migration of like, every Moses leading everybody out. It's one person. Okay. Yeah, this stuff is absolutely fascinating, but the testing companies did a really bad job early on telling everybody, oh, you'll find these matches and you're looking for everybody with the name Rosenberg. And they go, but they're not a DNA match. Well, yeah, because there's a zillion people named Rosenberg. Okay. Sorry. Next.
No, I totally understand. I will talk to you more about this at length later.
Not a problem.
Okay, so anonymous attendee asks, I'm trying to better understand the importance of how much DNA is shared with cousins. Could you lay that out again, which I think refers to the chart from Lara's blog? Um,
Okay.
they say basically, they continue saying, as long as they know it's a confirmed family linkage, they're confused about whether, like, what does it matter whether they share 1% of DNA with a cousin or 20% of DNA with a cousin, which wouldn't be a cousin at that point,
Right.
in most cases.
Okay. So let me see if I can find that, make sure I understand the question.
Yeah, it's
Um,
the 5:41 p.m. question.
okay. Okay. The test, you have to remember that autosomal DNA that you got from mom and you got from dad, unlike Y DNA and mitochondrial DNA, dilute 50% each generation. So you got 50% from mom and 50% from dad. You got roughly a quarter from each of your grandparents. I say roughly because I don't know if anybody got exactly 25% from each grandparent. You then go to your great grandparents and it's down to about 12.5%. Now that there's a big range in there. And as you keep going back further, it dilutes further to a point that if you share 1% with someone, you're talking about a sixth or seventh cousin. Now, most of us don't have that information in a tree. Our trees aren't that good. Okay? So if there's a lesson, you have to re energize working on your tree again. But the other part is the amount of DNA shared is a clue because second cousins can only share this range to this range. Third cousins share this range, whoops, wrong way, this range to this range, right? And that amount is a clue as to how much they can share when you're trying to figure out what the relationship is. Okay. And if you remember, I asked whether or not my match was a second cousin or was she a first cousin twice removed. By DNA, she could be either one of those. Okay. But when her in her profile, she says she's basically my age. She cannot possibly be the other relationship. What we're trying to do is get you to stop going down the rabbit hole strictly about how much DNA shared because people say, oh, that amount is this relationship. Maybe. Okay. I hope I answered your question. Next.
Okay, hopefully my sound is better. Someone let me know it was too low before, so I've raised the input volume. Laura or Lore wants to know, what does it mean to have 17% Sephardic DNA? They say that their grandmother was Spanish, but they were raised as a Catholic. And
Okay.
is it possible that they are a former converso because of the 17% Sephardic?
Probably. Okay. Now, let me say this because I think I forgot to say this. The Ashkenazim are not the only ones who have endogamy. The Sephardim have endogamy. The Mizrahi have endogamy. Remember, it's marrying within the clan. Okay. In Spain or Portugal or Iberia or Morocco, there were no Ashkenazi Jews. Conversely, those Sephardim and Mizrahi migrated at some point and may have ended up in Eastern Europe. They could have ended up in South America or Latin America or in North America. Okay. If you are 17% Sephardic, the next step is to go look at your matches and see if any of them list themselves as Sephardic. Remember, I showed you this is where you go in and you do look at their origins. You do look at this. And the Sephardim from Iberia share a lot of the DNA with those Western European groups. And a lot of the Catholics, okay, who share DNA with you are actually ancient Sephardim, okay, who converted a long time ago. Goes both ways. Next question.
Okay, we have a bunch of ancestry questions.
Okay.
Um, Jeff would like to know, you mentioned buying the pro version for a month, but
Hi,
he missed
Jeff.
what extras you get when you buy it. And also, is this the only DNA website you should buy an add-on to, or do the other ones
You
offer
start with,
material?
they're the only one at this point that's an add-on. Now, I'm not going to predict the future, but I was a sales and marketing executive. The trend in the world is subscriptions. Look at your streaming for satellites. Look at your streaming for the internet for channels. Look at cable TV. Everything is subscription based. Less people are testing their DNA. These testing companies need new revenue streams. I know. Listen, I hate paying for this stuff. Remember, we used to get all this stuff for free. Okay. My personal prediction is those days are done. We need to get used to that. So I would start with Ancestry, start with ProTools. You get a whole bunch of stuff. I don't have it in front of me. You'll have to look at their website. The key ones that I use, what did Krista Cowan say? She looked at they give you a score for your family tree, and my score for my family tree was better than hers. And she was very impressed. And I said, don't be. Okay. I just happened to be working on it a lot, and my score got better. But it helps you with errors and things like that. Buy Pro Tools, buy it for a month, and then, oh yeah, I'm retired. Can't afford this $10 a month. Can you cut me a deal? And they did. They gave me 6 months, I think, for $48. Doesn't save a lot, but every little bit helps. Okay. Now, they also now give you clusters, and I didn't talk about clusters here. Maybe you'll have me back one day to do that. Clusters is relatively new. Okay. It took me 5 minutes to learn how to use clusters. And I immediately found a relative that I could add to my tree that I would not have found even with enhanced shared matches. How about that? Okay. So, oh, we're good. Next.
Okay. Sarah would like to know, how do you reject a match on through lines, or reject an evaluation tree they're talking about?
They give you there's something on the bottom right, I think, accept or reject.
Okay.
Okay.
Barbara also has a question about through lines. She'd like to know, what is the algorithm that Ancestry uses for through lines? Is it DNA based? How do they find those 9 centimorgan connections? I thought personally on my end it was like actual family tree data people had answered, but I
It is.
wait to be proven wrong.
It is. Okay. So if you really want to get into the science, you can Google white paper ancestry through lines. And they'll show you where you can download the white paper with all the scientific words that explain how they do it. The bottom line is, and I'm not a scientist, okay? I'm just somebody who can communicate this stuff. I'm one of you. And what through lines does is it takes people who've done DNA tests and it compares your matches to people who have a family tree with the same similar surnames. Okay? That's the difference. It's not their regular search. It's the search of the DNA matches, which is why you have to have a tree. Now, do you have to have your whole big crazy family tree? Let's say you got 15,000 people. No. Start off with a pedigree tree, right? You, your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents, your second great grandparents. The key is their siblings and the children. Start with that. Try that. Next.
Okay. Sort of two related questions, and then okay. How do you, Christine wants to know how you turn on match notification in Ancestry, which I think is just in your account
It's in
settings.
your profile. It's in your profile, I believe. Go into your profile, and I think it's an account. Um, my grandchildren don't understand this, but I don't have all the answers. I just sometimes go in and I go look for it. Okay. Go into profile, or you could just Google it, right? Or, I actually use the chat bots instead. I use Gemini. I don't use Google anymore. Um, but you go in and just ask for it. It's the same. You have to go in there and assign your DNA to your family tree. It's two things you got to do.
So
By the way,
both.
have you ever noticed that when you email people through Ancestry, they don't respond? Remember that great match, Samantha, right? I've messaged her 3 times, haven't heard back from her yet. Okay. Why? Because people either have their notifications off or they did the DNA test, they got the ethnicity, and that's why they did it. They don't know anything about the matches. They don't ever go back and look. Okay. Next.
Both Rick and David would like you to explain the ASCM process, which I'm probably not pronouncing right.
Ask them. Okay. My friend Arthur Sisman told me I was going to have to do this. Do I have enough time?
We're sort of running late, but people, I mean, I'm happy to stay as long as you need for like another
Okay.
15, 20 minutes.
Let me go back into my
It just depends
presentation
if the
and
75 other people with us are happy to stay as well.
I'm going to go here. Wait a minute. I don't need all these. I just need that one, and that one. Okay. Unhide those slides. There's only 126 slides in the slide deck. Okay. Happy to stay longer. Okay. Let's see here. Let me ask, can I answer another question and then I'll get into ask them? Okay. Robert wants to know about GEDmatch. Do I use GEDmatch? I have used GEDmatch. I like some of the tools in GEDmatch. I have found zero new relatives in GEDmatch because GEDmatch is made up of all of the other testing companies. If you're at Ancestry and someone uploaded their data to GEDmatch, it's there. The nice part about GEDmatch is it shows me the information on one screen that Ancestry doesn't show me. But it doesn't show me all my Ancestry methods. Let me show you Ask them. I have to share again. I'll make it as quick as I can.
That's okay. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Let's go to Ask them. Okay. So Ask them stands for average segment size in centimorgans. And yes, I left out the second S for a reason because I have grandchildren. Average segment method. Ask them. If you say it fast enough, is ask them, ask them, ask them, ask them. When someone qualifies by ask them, they become a priority match and you contact those people. Okay? And here's how ask them works. I don't care which testing company it is, but I want the ask them number. Oops. Nope, went too fast. Go back. Thank you. I want the ask them number. Okay. My tool isn't working here. Oh, that's because it's out of batteries. Okay. Sorry, I got to do it this way. That, got it. Okay. I got it. Figured it out. Technology. The ask them number needs to be greater than or equal to 12 centimorgans. Why 12 centimorgans? The average amount of the size of the segments of your DNA match needs to be 12 or greater because there's a 99-ish% chance that that segment is because you're related to them with a common ancestor. You start getting smaller segments, and sometimes these segments are just because you're a human being on the planet Earth. They're not tree friendly. Ascom is looking for a tree friendly segment, 12 or greater. And here's how you calculate it. You have two matches at the testing company. These are two unknown matches. They both happen to share the same amount of DNA with you. The second qualifier of ASCM is you want the longest segment to be greater than 20. And both of them share longest segments that are 25. They're identical. But what do you see that's different? The quantity of segments, the number of segments. We used to go into this chromosome browser and look at the size of all the segments, but people hate chromosome browsers and they hate going through it. They don't understand it. This goes faster. ASCM is calculated simply by taking the amount of DNA shared, 135 centimorgans, and I divide it by 15, the number of segments. That number is 9 centimorgans. Match number 2. I take the 135. I'm working with what the testing companies give me. I'm dividing that by the quantity of segments, in this case, 8. The ASCM is 16.9. So, if the ASCM needs to be 12 or greater, which match is a priority match to you? The testing companies have said match 1 is your best match. But which one, when you have endogamy, is the best match? In this case, it's match 2. Okay? The amount of DNA shared divided by the number of segments, the quantity of segments. I tell you this because the longer the segments, the better the chance that they are because you're related to them from a common ancestor. If you have less segments, now this is for distant relatives. This is not for your brothers and sisters and second cousins. This is second cousins once removed and further back. Okay? If you share less quantity of segments with people, the segments have to be longer. Longer segments means related in a tree-friendly manner. And the beauty of ASCM is you can go really fast and go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Next question.
So Anonymous would like to know, do each of the testing companies give you the amount of the largest segment?
Everybody except 23andMe.
Yes. And Anonymous also, don't know if it's the same Anonymous attendee or not, would like to know, and I think it's a good question. I know how all of these family tree, ancestry, and DNA sites have varying degrees of privacy with our data. Are there certain companies that have stood out to you as offering users greater control over their privacy?
I have to be careful. Every corporation and the US government and every government is subject to being hacked. You have to protect yourself. You do that by using multi-factor MFA or two-factor authentication on every one of these websites. In fact, you should use it on every place it's offered. Is it perfect? No. Okay. Now, having said that, you should also not use the same username and password at all the same sites. You can't help it when the testing companies use your email address as your username. So you have to live with that. But please don't use the same password because when 23andMe got, what was the term? Wasn't hacked, intruded upon, it was because people use the same username and password, and all they did was get it from one of the other hacks and just kept trying it. Okay? Yeah, my data got taken at 23andMe as well. So, unique username, multi-factor authentication, and at some of the testing companies, like Family Tree DNA, you can opt in or opt out of allowing the cops, law enforcement, to use your DNA. GEDmatch has the same thing. The other testing companies don't offer that. Okay? You can opt in or you can opt out. I hope that answers your question.
We have a couple. Lisa says she thinks she's your fourth cousin once removed, or a fourth cousin to Art and Steve Bardige on
Hey,
MyHeritage.
hi Lisa, send me a message.
Yeah, so you seem to be expanding your family as
That'd
we
be
continue.
great. Yeah,
We have a couple of harder ones to answer. I almost feel like just because they're a little more vague. Ellen wanted to know what if the DNA match you're trying to research lives and grew up in another country? How do you
yeah.
find the documentation on their family to prove that it's the match?
Okay. So again, when you know, Ancestry has some records from, European countries. You kind of have to do genealogy the old-fashioned way. If you're talking about are people in whether they're in Israel or they're in Eastern Europe and you go to Jewish Gen, you have to go and do some of that documentation. I have colleagues who are using the term collaborator used to be a really bad term in the Second World War, but in genealogy and family history terms, you need to collaborate with people. You have to find people who know more than you do about your family, and you never know how that works. We a very brief story, and I don't know all the ins and outs, and he'll tell me that tomorrow, I'm sure, because I didn't say it. But I have a colleague, and we do DNA presentations together, and we're doing it for one organization. And he's doing research, and he's talking with the guy there, and it turns out that the two of them are distant cousins, and they could place each other in their trees. They got together, and now they got a much bigger tree because one guy knew something that the other one didn't. Okay. I don't have any magic for you. Sometimes you just actually have to do a lot of work. I like to say, again, you want to be tested everywhere because you don't know where your matches are. And you need to do your genealogy research because you're looking for people. You know, I get really frustrated, if you could tell earlier, people copy trees and the trees are wrong, but I still search them anyway because where there's smoke, there might be fire that maybe they got something right that is a lead for me. Don't rule anything out. But Jenny's the better genealogist than I am.
That's because I like digging through Polish records.
There you go. I,
If you want Polish State Archives help, I am the person to ask.
oh, good. I don't have any Polish answer. Well, I mean, it's pre. Mine's
Yeah,
all
but you have some
Volhynia.
from Ukraine. There may be
It's
records
all
that are sitting.
It's all Volhynia in Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep. My father was
Um,
born there. Next.
Very cool. Anonymous wants to know, and again, it's sort of a similar question to Ellen's. With marriages happening outside the Jewish religion so frequently, where do people get a hold of the missing pictures, or I'm assuming like pieces of family history outside of one's known Jewish family members? Um, it's sort of the same as everywhere. I mean, I'm not married to a Jewish man, and I know his family's genealogy as well as I know
Right.
mine.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's a great point. Yeah, both of my daughters married non-Jewish guys, right? And I'm doing their family research, which is actually harder than our stuff because there's too much information.
Yes, and you're
Okay.
sitting there going, which Bartholomew Moore do I need from
Right.
Dublin? Which I got to tell you, there's about 15 of them who could be
Yeah.
my husband's ancestor, and I have not yet narrowed it down.
Right. I mean, there's some guy with the same name and you're in the old country and you're looking, and you might not ever find that out. Okay. And yet I was able to document that my youngest granddaughter had six ancestors on the Mayflower. I mean, it's crazy.
That is very cool.
That's crazy, right? They have too much information. We go the other way. Part of this is it's all about the family tree. DNA is just a tool here. I'm trying to give you clues to use different methodologies besides just looking at the match list and believing what the testing companies tell you. And then you can go faster. Next.
Myra, your friend, wants to know about
She's my
Ask 'em.
cousin.
Oh, hi, Myra, the cousin. So what if you have a cluster of matches that only have one segment, and obviously the result is greater than 12 centimorgans?
Um, Myra, which testing company? Answer live.
Oh, sorry.
There she goes. Okay. Hey, Myra, which testing company?
Or I think you have to type it in, Myra. There we go. Ancestry.
Ancestry. Okay. Now, at Ancestry, for years, people like me have told you to use the shared amount of DNA and ignore the unweighted. Well, after you read the white paper, I find out that we've been telling people wrong. Me and everybody else. You use the unweighted amount of DNA because the segments are unweighted and the longest segment is unweighted. You could ignore it. I know it says amount of shared DNA over three segments or over one segment or whatever, right? It's um it's just shown wrong on their screen. And I've talked to them, but they can't change it. It's too hard. So Myra wants to know, suppose you have a cluster of matches and they all share one segment, okay? And it's greater than or equal to 12. The answer is it's a priority match if your tree goes back far enough. Okay? It's, if you have someone that you share one segment that's 40 centimorgans, right? You're still in the fourth to fifth cousin range. It's far back. And I know you have, everybody's got tree issues, but they are people to look at. You put them in a priority list, whether you do it in a spreadsheet or Word and you write on a yellow legal pad, whatever methodology you want to use to track things. Okay. Those are important. And if you are finding you can't get anywhere with them, you put them aside and go back to them. Don't delete them. Don't do anything because the science is getting better. The techniques are getting better. And you will be amazed in the next 3 to 5 years what we're going to be able to do. And no, DNA can't analyze this stuff accurately yet.
Okay. B4 would like to know how you set up the email notifications to get messages on Ancestry. I think
Yeah.
probably
We
that's
did.
in
We already
your
went over that.
settings still.
That's in settings and profile. I think click on your picture in the upper right hand corner of Ancestry. I think is where it's at.
And then finally,
Okay.
Maxine had a similar question about, I actually moved her first part of the question, which is why you can't see it on there.
Okay.
It says, if you have ancestors who you know the surnames have been changed when they moved, whether, and I'm assuming whether they anglicized them or they
Right.
adopted different surnames when they came to the US, which happened, like completely different surnames, which happens
Right.
sometimes. Um, how do
Your
you
family.
track?
Your family too.
My family went from Chait, which I must talk to you about,
Whoa.
and to
Okay.
Canterwich, because we went to the more complicated surname for some reason.
Well, yeah. So my grandfather, David Bardiga, later Bardage, had two brothers, Max Burdikoff and Barney Burdikoff.
Oh my.
Okay. So, what do? You do genealogy. And one of the things that's important are family trees like through lines. If you have a DNA match and you have a family tree and they have a family tree, at some point you're going to find a common ancestor. The enhanced shared matching will show you you got this person and that person. And if you remember my cousin Risa, she listed herself on Ancestry under her married name. No good. By the way, ladies, ladies, change your ancestry designation so your maiden name is in there, please. Okay? Because that's the name people are looking for. Even if you put it in as hyphenated or in parentheses, somehow so that people can find you. Okay? And then I learned from Krista Cowan, if you don't know a surname, you should put five underline spaces in the surname thing under maiden name, and Ancestry doesn't recognize it, but it shows it on the tree so that you know you don't know the answer to that. And you're no different than me. I have the same thing. Okay. Matter of fact, the Berdigoff people contacted me and they go, no, no, the name was originally Berdigoff. No, no, wasn't Bardiga. I said, okay, here's the revision list from the old country for 1850 and 1858. Here you go. So next.
I love that. Anonymous would like to know what are some of the amazing
Excuse me.
things that are coming in the coming years that you're alluding to?
Oh, okay. Um, at some point, the single biggest challenge that we have is there are a lot of records from Europe and Eastern Europe that are not transcribed, let alone translated, let alone sorted, right? Um, Indexed. And I think that AI at some point is going to take over that function and be able to do it very quickly. Right now, it's struggling. There's some people that have some luck with it, but as I always say, and I'm working on AI stuff all the time, don't trust anything it says and verify everything it says. Okay? But the ability to go faster, these are large language models. This is in their wheelhouse. They just have to figure out how to deal with handwritten documentation from the 19th and 18th centuries and bad handwriting and bad photocopies of the handwriting. And you're asking it to translate or transcribe handwritten documents that are on a printed form. And it's sitting there going, I'm looking for this, and there's all this other stuff, and it doesn't know what to do yet. It's coming. How fast, I don't know. Hopefully within my lifetime. Um,
Yeah, I find with Transcribus, because we have a subscription, the Center
yeah,
for Jewish History has an institutional subscription
yep,
to them, and so I use it at work sometimes. Most of the best models, you're going to get a 5% error rate, which means that they get about 90 to 95% of it right,
yeah.
and then some of it is really, really atrociously wrong.
Yeah, something about playground or something or whatever. Um, I did, but I find it partially useful. It takes time. It's slow right now. It's
Yes.
gonna get better, okay? But to give you an idea, I had it look at a metrical record, okay? And it's giving me all this nonsense, and then suddenly it gives me the given name and the age of the people, and I'm going, yes, right?
Because that's
Because
what
I
we
don't
need.
need everything. I just need to know, are my relatives, are my ancestors on that page? And can I then take that page and give it to a real person who can really translate it, right? Because you can't ask them to translate thousands of pages and find you in there, right? That's not reasonable. Okay. So I think that's happening. And then we don't yet know what my heritage is going to do with the whole genome testing.
Yes, that I
Okay.
find very interesting too.
Okay. It's going to take a while. I can tell you what I did. I ordered 2 kits.
Oh, did you?
Why? Oh, I'm sorry. My granddaughters did something. If I go like this on Zoom, my granddaughters, I get this. Okay.
I have kids, don't worry. I find it great
Okay. So
because
I
they're
don't want anybody
celebrating your
getting
birthday.
upset. Okay. So, and I talk with my hands. So, um, what were we talking about? Oh, whole genome. So with my heritage, I ordered 2 kits. One basically for myself because they're conflicting as to whether or not they're going to go back and look at everybody else's. And I don't think that they can accurately because most of their kits were uploaded. And the
Yes.
DNA, the SNPs are not the same, the algorithms are not the same. They impute stuff. So I'm going to do another test. I'm not going to submit it until next year when they say we're open for business because I don't want the existing test. I want the new test. The cost is cheap. And I ordered 2 because the shipping was free with 2. I'm cheap.
No, it makes
Okay.
sense.
Next.
Um, so Betty wanted to know, Betty's parents are both Showa survivors, and
Okay.
she always would love to find out if any of the family survived. She's on Ancestry, no one has shown up. Betty, if you email, I'll send it to you again privately, but if you email us at the Center for Jewish History, we may be able to help you at least look at the results and try to tell
Yeah.
you what areas to focus on, because we definitely do that and try to help
Right.
people who are descendants of
Now,
survivors. So I'm
what
going
I
to answer
can, yeah, what
Betty's,
she
but you
also
can
needs
answer
to
too.
do, order a test from 23andMe, order a test from MyHeritage, and order a test from Family Tree DNA for you and your siblings and any known cousins. Because remember, you're dealing with more distant relatives. They may not share any DNA with you, but they might share with your sibling or a cousin. And you don't know where your unknown relatives tested. Okay.
Yes.
Next.
Um, Anonymous would like you to summarize which among all the different DNA testing databases has a notable flawed feature and which ones really stand out. I mean, I like
Oh,
all the different ones personally. I feel that MyHeritage, I love the chromosome browser. I'm one of the people who likes it, just my
yeah.
take on it. But
Yep.
they impute things, and that's very
Yep.
frustrating. I'll let you
Yep.
go.
And that's what they're going to use in the whole genome, which worries me. Okay. Um, what do I like? Um, I like the tools at MyHeritage. I like that they give us triangulation right in the chromosome browser. I don't use triangulation is where you share a segment with a known match and your unknown match shares that exact same segment. Mostly that segment. Okay. That's important because a triangulated segment has a really good chance of being proven as one that comes from a common ancestor. But I don't use it like everybody else does. My heritage uses it and they go, oh, your brother, and this person match, are triangulated. And I'm like, my brother and I share so much DNA. Of course we share that segment. I'm not worried about that. You want to triangulate with like a second cousin as your known relative to compare it to that person. Okay. Because it you have to get away from the close relatives in that. I hope that their clustering tool gets better. I think they're going to get pushed by Ancestry, but their clustering tool comes from Genetic Affairs, and he's always updating that stuff. I like the ability to sort, but as Jenny pointed out, they have a tendency to impute some of the data. Now, imputation means I've got a segment, whoops, this way, that looks like this, okay, with a match. It's big. It's 40, 50, 60 centimorgans, maybe more with a match. And every other segment is small, okay? What they do, because when they did all the uploads from all the other testing companies, the testing companies don't use the same chips. the same algorithms. They don't even look at the same markers, the same SNPs. So my heritage, their computer algorithm goes, oh, wait, there should be something right here. So we're going to impute, we believe there should be a SNP there. So it makes two segments or three segments, one big one. How do you recognize that? If all the other segments are small and you got one Jagundo one, it's imputed. Okay? Sorry about that. I hope I answered people's questions there. That's the
Yeah,
only,
I think
yeah. But everybody goes, oh, my heritage, this and that. It's not every match. It's not everything. Okay? Everybody needs to take a chill pill. Next.
I think we're gonna, because we're getting close to 7 o'clock now, but I think
Yep.
we'll do one more question, which is from Christine, and it sort of dovetails with what you just answered. She says, if I uploaded genetic results from FTDNA to the other companies, is there an advantage in taking the actual tests from the other companies,
No,
like ordering the MyHeritage kit, ordering, well, you can't upload to Ancestry, but
well, you can't upload to any of them anymore except Family Tree DNA. MyHeritage has stopped uploads. Their database is big enough and they're focusing on this other whole genome thing. And I hope, I've talked with the other genetic genealogy people and listened to stuff. I hope it makes a difference, but I wouldn't hope on it. I wouldn't expect anything for at least a year, right? Should you test at the other companies? If you took your ancestry data and sent it, uploaded it to Family Tree DNA, don't test. Okay? If you took your 23andMe and uploaded it, don't test. Same thing if you did it at MyHeritage. There's no reason to take a test again because otherwise you'll find this person that's listed as self or identical twin. And will there be some differences? Maybe, but it's not enough to make a difference. I wouldn't do that. What I would do is look at if you're interested in your way back migration pattern history, do the Y DNA and mitochondrial DNA. Don't worry about all the match stuff. You're talking about helping science. We're trying to figure out with the Y DNA in my one of my projects, how the hell we got from ancient Israel to Eastern Europe. Okay? Because there is not one member of our group that's from Italy, Germany, France, nowhere where the Ashkenazim formulated themselves. We came to Eastern Europe from another way. We're trying to find that migration pattern. Pretty cool stuff.
yes, and just in terms of like migration patterns, dovetailing with that, even I just read this book, Proto, which is about Proto-Indo-European, which is the
Yep.
language that most of the Indo-European languages spring from. And what's fascinating is that it's triangulating evidence between linguistics, archaeology, and now genetic genealogy to use population genetics to pinpoint the migrations of people literally from what's now Ukraine to what's the foothills of Afghanistan. And
Yeah.
it's a fascinating book where she's, putting together all of this very recent research
Yeah.
that has come into it.
And until Israel allows, which they probably never will, digging up of the graves so that we can get DNA of the ancient Israelis, we're not going to know for sure, right? What I can tell you in my group is there is a complete divide we found about 3,000 years ago where people are not Jewish go in one direction and the people who are Jewish go in another direction. And the non-Jewish people are still in the Balkans and the Eastern Mediterranean. Oh, remember what I said earlier? We're all Mediterranean based.
Yes, and I think that's a good spot to end right now. Thank you,
Great.
everyone who stayed with us, and thank you, Gil, for running
Wow, you're
over
not kidding.
time. This has been fabulous. I have enjoyed it very
Good.
much.
Me too. Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone. I'm going to end it
Thank you,
now.
everyone. Have a good one. Thank you. Have a happy Hanukkah.
Yes, happy Hanukkah.